Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got another special episode of Herschel Talkers again. Got another great return guest for us, Uncle Lou from Lou2 for you from YouTube. How we doing today, Lou?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty well. Good morning to you.
Good morning in there.
Yes, sir. Georgia's got a huge game this week, of course. We got LSU SEC championship game. I believe currently from looking, it's around 7.5 point spread. Want to jump right into it. First off, Uncle Lou, really great content this year on your YouTube and your YouTube channel. Thought you got great content. I wanted to ask you, what's your out of all the videos you do, because I know you do one about every day, what's probably your favorite video that you do each week, or certainly that you enjoy doing?
I like the Sunday morning videos. Those the your season is over video. It's like a week.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about all the teams that won, I talk about the teams that lost. It's probably the most popular video of the week. That's a fun one to do.
Well, and you look like on those, it's definitely one you look like you're having the most fun on as well.
I have a blast on those. That's me probably in my most. I'm no analyst. Like I do some preview and prediction videos because people like to watch those, but that's not really like Lou in his natural habitat. But like the trash talking videos or the Sunday videos, that's me in my natural habitat. Like I don't put a whole lot of thought or planning into those. I literally just pick up the camera and start yelling at it, and those are the funnest to do.
Yeah, and you get the robe on, drinking the coffee, and you just you do the you're laughing at them, and it shows the different icons or logos. It's great. My partner here, Sean, had a long tangent last week and basically kind of just went off on what's wrong with Georgia this year with the offense. I know Fromm struggled, even though I was looking at stats. I think the other day, he does have 21 touchdowns, 3 picks, hasn't thrown or turned the ball over since the South Carolina game where he threw a pick 6 and 3 interceptions. But just wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think is wrong with the offense this year in your eyes?
I think it's on Jake Fromm, period. I mean, I know we have young receivers, but this is college football. You only have people for 3 or 4 years. So I don't know if people were waiting around thinking we were going to somehow eventually have a team full of all seniors at every position. And if that's what it takes for Jake Fromm to be successful, then he's not the quarterback a lot of people think he is. He's the leader of the offense. He's a veteran. He's in his 3rd year starting. And in my opinion, any great player makes people around him better. It's hard to find that from Jake Fromm. I mean, unless you're just the biggest Fromm fan, I don't see how you've watched Georgia play this year and said to yourself, man, he looks good. He's been bad. There's been very few times where he's looked. There were portions of the Florida game where he looked good. Outside of that, it's hard to find anything. And even in the Florida game, he sort of saved himself by throwing the 3 touchdown passes. But, I mean, how many wide open ones did he miss? And then we had to kick field goals, and that's just been the case all year long. He's dropped the ball over and over again all year long, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll tell you, too. I think one, I'm not saying by any means that he's, he ever had the potential to be a number 1 overall pick. I feel like his ceiling or his production level certainly ought to be higher than what it has been. I mean, I feel like Jake Fromm at least ought to be a really productive college quarterback. And so some with the play calling, I question a little bit, right? I mean, as a freshman, he had a reputation of only liking to throw back shoulder stuff or slants. And it doesn't seem like we see much of that this year, from what I can tell. It looks like they're trying to do a lot of drag routes and everything else. And if that's not really in his wheelhouse, why are we doing it?
I'm not sure what's in his wheelhouse, really. Swing passes, short curl routes, out routes. I mean, he doesn't have a very good arm. I mean, and that's not a knock on him, because that's not anything there's nothing he can do about that.
Right.
He doesn't have a very good arm. And you mentioned his interception totals, and obviously you never want a lot of interceptions, but I mean, sometimes you got to take a chance. I mean, this is big time college football. Not every receiver is going to be open by 5 yards. I mean, watch how many catches does Jerry Jeudy have this year, and the defensive back is right on his hip. A million. And we don't have any Jerry Judys. I understand that, but hey, watch LSU play this Saturday. They will throw slant after slant after slant, and our DBs will be right on the receiver's hip, and there's nothing we can do about it because the ball will be thrown on a line right where it's supposed to be. He can't do that, and it's unfortunate. But I don't really see. I mean, 2017 he was a freshman. Okay, fine. You lean on the running backs. 2018, everybody wants to blame Chaney. Okay, great. 2019, oh well, we got a new OC and a couple of new wide receivers. I mean, at some point, can you tell me who Greg McElroy's wide receivers were?
I just remember Julio.
Okay, what about Jake Coker?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I'm saying. I mean, Demetrius Robertson had 700 yards receiving in 2016 with a quarterback that, no offense to you guys, but you probably can't name him.
Yeah. Right.
And the point is, no one knows. With someone that we've never heard of, I've never seen it from Jake Fromm, and I don't see it this year either.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of like it would have been great to keep Fields. I don't believe Kirby, handled that the right way. I guess a lot of people are looking at Coley this year. What's your thoughts on? Do you think if somehow we pulled it out against LSU, which we're favored not to? Do you think maybe move in a different direction than James Coley? Or I know everybody's been talking about Bobo because he could come back, but
well, I've been hearing for 6 weeks about how terrible LSU's defense is. So if the offense can't do anything against LSU, somebody has to pay that price. Now, the person whose fault it is not likely to pay the price, so it is likely to be James Coley. And I would have no problem with that because I'm of the opinion that offensive coordinator is irrelevant in the Georgia football program right now. Kirby pulls the strings there. It's way too conservative. Run up the middle, pass for 4 yards on 3rd and 6. It's just,
Well, right. And I'm not trying to be, well, if I am, right? But I'm not trying to be a complete Jake Fromm apologist. And maybe I'm just delusional. I'll be the first to throw that out there. The moxie he showed as a freshman, I almost wonder if he'd actually ever had a real quarterback coach. Could he have done more? You know what I mean? Because what he showed, it looked like he was going to be another Aaron Murray. And hey, I understand that doesn't always happen for a multitude of reasons. And maybe it's just gut or whatever else it is, but I just feel like he's capable of more than what he's given.
Well, I do too. I've seen him play really well. I mean, he played really well against Alabama in the first half both times. He's played really well against Florida the entire game in 2018 and parts of the game in 2019. So it's hard to put the finger on because we've changed coordinators. That's obviously not the issue, or maybe it's part of it. I don't know. Maybe it's Kirby being too conservative. I don't know what it is. But I don't know how much more talented an offense we could possibly have than we have right now. I mean, we have 5 stars at every position except quarterback. So, and we had that, but and he'll be in New York next weekend at the Heisman ceremony. But so, I don't know what the answer is offensively. I really don't. I think Kirby is going to have to. I hope we win the national title. Listen, I'm a Georgia fan. I'm a blind homer. I'm going to get on video on Friday and trash talk LSU like they're the worst team on planet Earth. And if we somehow win, I'm going to do the same thing to Clemson or Ohio State or anybody else. But
right.
Are you surprised that not a lot of people are giving Georgia a chance to go much further this year? I mean,
you want to know who Georgia really reminds me of? Is like, to me, we've become the college football equivalent of the Buffalo Bills, where we get to the big game every year, and it's almost like we want to pretend we've got a better chance than we really do. We'll find a way to screw it up. And that's what I think will happen Saturday. We'll screw it up. Because in both Alabama games, it's been the offense that's disappeared when we needed something from them. And not just Jake Fromm either. Like last year, towards the end of that game, we couldn't buy a run to sustain a drive. We had 2,000-yard running backs. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot went wrong in the second half of those games, but I mean that's always a possibility that something like that could happen to LSU. But I mean, my bigger fear than that is that we look up in the third quarter and it's 31-3.
Yeah, and that LSU looked really scary last week, 50-7 over Texas A&M.
Our defense is legit, and it's not like I think LSU is just going to run up and down the field on them. But if the offense comes out like that, I mean, we had 10 3-and-outs against Auburn. Well, what do you think's going to happen if we have that against LSU? They'll score 45 without a problem.
Exactly.
If you're going 3-and-out against LSU, you can hang it up. They will 100% put up 40 points like it's nothing.
And you can't kick, have hot rod kick field goals all day because that'll get ugly too.
You can't get down there and then clinch up and not put it in the end zone. That's not going to work either. I mean, you got to score points. I mean, Auburn held them to 23 points. We hold them somewhere around there, we're going to have a chance to win. But not all of what you hold LSU to is dependent upon your defense. A lot of it is dependent upon the offense's ability to keep LSU's offense off the field through drives, first downs. Listen, we get the ball at the 10-yard line and we drive it to the LSU 49 by getting 3 or 4 first downs and then punt them inside the 10-yard line. That's a win. You get the ball on your own 30-yard line and go 3-and-out. That's a huge loss there. You cannot. You got to play keep away, because as good as our defense is, you keep giving the ball back to LSU. The other in turnovers, South Carolina and Georgia Tech. I mean, turnovers come in bunches at UGA. We don't play around. We don't mess around. We turn the ball once. We turn the ball over once. You can count on it happening another 2 or 3 times. I mean, you do any of that, it's over.
Yeah, and fumbled punt return and then the onside kick.
Yeah, you give LSU some extra possessions and it's over. You got to limit their possessions, not give them extra ones. I think Georgia can win this one. I mean, Auburn came close. Florida hung with them in a different kind of way, more of a shootout type of way. That one was a little more high scoring, kind of a back and forth, trading touchdowns there till the very end. LSU pulled up by 14, but I mean, you look at the Auburn game; they held them to 23 there in Baton Rouge. I have a hard time seeing a way that Georgia wins if LSU gets into the 30s. I mean, I try to have faith and confidence, but I mean, at some point, realism has to set in. I mean, I don't know what we've seen from our offense all year that tells us we're going to score in the 30s against LSU. And now you got no Cager. Pickens is out for the first half. DeAndre Swift is playing with one arm, so it's not looking good.
You think what percent you think Swift's going to be ready? Because I almost thought I had some buddies that were texting, and it might have been when he fumbled that second time. It almost looked the way he landed. It could have been his pride was hurt a little bit. I'm just being a conspiracy theory, but
I've heard a lot of that too, and probably maybe there is something to that. But I hope he's close to 100%. We'll see. I mean, the good thing is Swift is one of those guys. Now, it's hard to get a big clean hit on Swift because he's kind of shifty. Like even when you tackle him, it's kind of just a hold on and drag him down type of thing. So it's not so much him getting hit that would worry me, but sometimes you can't tell or you can't help which side you fall on. It could be something as simple as falling over onto that shoulder that could re-aggravate it if that's what it is. I mean, that's the other thing. The running back situation from UJ ain't exactly what it used to be. To be real there. cross our fingers from Zamir White for next year. But right now, he's a shell of his former self. I mean, he looks like none of his joints bend when he. I mean, I've never seen anybody so stiff.
He just runs up the middle, yeah.
He just puts his head down and runs real stiff, straight. And Chubb wasn't himself either that first year, 2016, I guess it was, yeah. And then 2017, he looked more like his former self. So you got to hope for that for next year for Zeus, because right now next year's running back situation is sketchy at best. And Fromm's coming back. Where else would he go? He's got no other.
That was going to be one of my other questions. So definitely think Fromm's coming back.
I don't think there'd be 7 or 8 quarterbacks taken ahead of Fromm. I don't think he'll go pro. He'll be a 4th round pick or something. I think he comes back.
Right.
And honestly, as hard as I am on Fromm, because of what happened with Juwan Mathis, that's the best case scenario for Georgia right now, because if Fromm leaves, whatever quarterback we have next year will be somebody who's never taken a snap in college. It will be either Juwan Mathis or Carson Beck. So, we didn't get a chance to work Juwan in any this year because of the brain cyst. So it's probably for the best that he comes back.
Yeah, another guy in the LSU game that maybe kind of under the radar not talking about, that Clyde Edwards is a hilarious. He's really been coming on. And we got I know we got a great run defense. We got to shut him down, because if he gets hot.
Yeah. He's a bowling ball too, and LSU can really hurt you because they throw, and you can't help but sort of soften up as a defense, and then they hand it off to him a couple of times, and he's just like a bowling ball up in there.
Hey, have you given your I usually watch videos. Have you given your prediction or on the game yet, or is that coming later in the week?
I'm doing a preview video on it tomorrow. Just not the trash talk thing. That'll be on Friday, but just like a straightforward analysis type video on the game tomorrow, and then my regular pipe and hate video will be on Friday.
Okay, well, I'll ask for the score then. I'll let your audience get that. I'll give mine, of course, big Georgia homer, of course, but I guess gun to my head, I hate probably the first time I picked against them. I'm going to go 31-17 LSU. I think we'll hang around the first half, but I think our offense is going to stall out, and I think their defense is coming along. I hate to say it. Of course, I hope I'm wrong, but I just think it's been one of the best offenses I've seen. I know last year with Tua, they came in rolling with averaging 40-something points a game, and we were able to limit them, even though we still lost and we got beat by Jalen Hurts later. Another thing with just being a Georgia fan is I was wondering just how we have bad luck is who's their backup quarterback, because you never know. Burrow goes down, and
I've heard talking about backup quarterback. I don't even know who it is.
Yeah, but I paid for that to happen. I was like, you can't make this up.
Yeah. I don't think LSU's defense is great. I do think it's better than the numbers indicate. Like, I've been making fun of LSU all year, calling them the Oklahoma of the SEC. Their defense is a little bit better than that. There is some truth to it's part excuses and part truth when you hear these offenses that are like that say, well, the only reason our defensive numbers are so bad is because we score so quick and blah, blah, blah. There is some truth to that. But generally speaking, LSU's defense is not what it has been in years past, even besides the whole, our offense scores quick thing. But again, if we're going 3 and out, it's hard to wear their defense out no matter how quick LSU is scoring. So we have to sustain drives, and we got to keep this thing within reason. It's hard you go down 14. It's hard to see a way back from that with the offense we've seen all year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I want to get your thoughts. I don't know if you might have mentioned on one of the videos or even in your morning videos, but what's your thoughts on Dabo Swinney's comments in the post game, kind of whining a little bit about Georgia and how we gotta go 30-0 and we gotta win and no one wants us in there. What do you think? He's a little butthurt?
I hope it's a case where he's just trying too hard to be Nick Saban or something. Like, because I've said this before about Dabo and Saban, they're always looking for ways to motivate their team because they need artificial motivation because they just beat people so often and so bad and so regularly. I hope that's what it is, because if he even halfway believes what he said, then he's got mental problems. It's just because he just sounded like a crybaby, and really a lot of what he was saying didn't even make sense. It was just crazy talk. So I don't put much stock in that. The guy, he's reaching big time with that. No one's hating on, like, Clemson is really good, but it's like he's trying to pretend that Clemson is getting the same level of treatment or whatever that Alabama has been getting for the last few years. And that's just not the case. I mean, yeah, Clemson won 2 out of the last 3. There's not people lined up around the block hating Clemson like there was Alabama for years. He's just trying to pretend like there is, and it's just not the case.
I agree. Yeah, I just think he's trying to slowly kind of motivate him in his own way, because I think he's really big on motivating his team. But, I mean, he won 2 out of 3 national titles. Everybody knows you're there. I think he's just, hurt over always hearing about, we haven't played anybody in the ACC so bad this year.
I mean, they're not 27-0.
Yeah.
They're 12-0. Now, we can argue about whether it's humanly possible not to factor in what a team did last year when you're ranking them this year, but that's the playoff committee is supposed to look at what they've done this year. I don't see how you look at either Ohio State or LSU and say, yeah, Clemson should be ranked ahead of them. Again, that's not Clemson's fault. Clemson, I mean, I don't think Clemson intentionally went out and scheduled bad non-con games. I mean, the 2, yeah, but okay, South Carolina, that's an in-state rival. That's like Georgia getting knocked for playing Georgia Tech. Like, it's an in-state rival. You have to play them. Just get to Texas A&M. I mean, it's not like they're going out and scheduling the worst teams in some conference or something. It's not Clemson's fault that the ACC is terrible, So I don't blame Clemson for their schedule. Like Alabama, it's like Alabama put themselves in their own. Like, that's Alabama's fault. What they, with their schedule. Like, now it doesn't matter. They caught a second loss, but they were mad they were 5th or whatever. But that was Alabama's fault. You schedule Western Carolina, Southern Miss, New Mexico, and Duke, and you don't even schedule a home and home with Duke. You'll only play them on a neutral field. That's your fault, Alabama. You better win all your games then. This isn't Clemson's fault, their schedule. So you watch Clemson play. They're obviously a really good team, but don't you have to reward teams for good wins? I mean, of course you do. So that's why Clemson and Ohio State are ahead of Clemson. Ohio State and Clemson ahead of no.
Yeah, and speaking of the rankings, I know they came out last night. Ohio State 1, LSU 2, Clemson 3, UGA 4. Guess the popular question is, in your opinion, everything goes as planned, you agree with Utah getting the 4th spot? If Georgia loses, you agree with that? Even though it's not a fancy pick, but
I think if Utah wins and Georgia loses, Utah will get the 4th spot. I think there's some Oklahoma fatigue, and that's not the same as Alabama. People say they're tired of Alabama winning all the time, but how are you going to leave them out when they're undefeated or win the SEC or something? You can't. But if there's a possibility to give somebody else a chance over Oklahoma, when we know what's going to happen with Oklahoma, they're going to lose. I think they would rather give somebody else a chance. I mean, Oklahoma is the same team we've seen with the worst. I mean, Oklahoma's offense is not as good this year as it has been either of the last 2 years. So it would just be the same thing we've seen. And I just think people are tired of seeing it. And whether that plays into it or not, I don't know. Plus, honestly, I just think Utah's a better team. Their defense is legit.
And they're number 1 to rush.
Yeah, well, they're number 3 overall. So, I mean, and I know that total defense isn't. I mean, with the advanced metrics now and yards per play is more important and blah, blah, blah. Fine, I get that. But the top 4 defenses in total defense are UGA, Clemson, Ohio State, and Utah. So don't tell me that those aren't 4 good defenses. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. How about seeing Bama drop down to 12? I haven't seen that in I don't know when.
I haven't seen it either, but if you're being do I think all 11 teams ranked ahead of Alabama would beat Alabama on a neutral field? Probably not, but that's not how the rankings are made. And if you go by the criteria that the playoff committee says they go by, I think that's about right. Florida beat Auburn. You didn't. So Florida should be ahead of you. Baylor has one loss. The season is over. They have one loss. They should be ahead of you. You have two. Like it makes sense to have them at 12. To me.
Do you think the dynasty at Alabama is going to take a back seat? Maybe, in your opinion, how much longer do you think Saban's going to coach? He's not a spring chicken. What is he, 69 or 70? I know he hates losing. I think he'll.
Yeah, it's hard to say that. I mean, it seems like anytime Alabama loses, people say, "Oh, is this it?" or whatever. Now there are, like, defensively, I think they'll be much better this year because they injuries killed them this year, and they ended up playing a ton of freshmen on defense. Those guys are going to be that much better next year. But I mean, offensively, they're losing Najee Harris, Tua, and all their wide receivers. So those people, I don't, Alabama's recruited well. They've got some players on offense that cannot be replaced. So it might be back to like more of an old school style of Alabama next year with a lot of running the ball and defense. It's hard to say, are they going away? We got to play them there next year, early in the season. That'd be a huge game. We'll see. I actually like that we play them early, especially if Fromm comes back, because they'll be breaking in. Well, I guess either Mac Jones or Tua Jr. will be the quarterback, and I would like them to.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I heard this because I've heard some Alabama fans walking around in Charlotte just being out and about saying he could be better than his brother, but it's hard to believe. But yeah.
The same people that told us Mac Jones was just as good as Tua, so
Exactly.
I don't buy it at all.
I was going to talk a little SEC coaches search and carousel, people getting fired. Well, first off, not a firing. What do you think about Boone Muschamp staying another year? Do you think definitely back against his wall, smoking hot seat? I know he's cleaning house on his coordinators.
Yeah, and I don't think he should have been fired this year. And nobody has given South Carolina a harder time than me. But you look at South Carolina's schedule heading into this season, and getting to 6 wins would have been a minor miracle, no matter how good of a coach. Hush! No matter how good of a coach Will Muschamp is. And then you got the quarterback injuries on top of that. And, I mean, hell, they beat Georgia, and then they turn around and lose to App State. So maybe you say that's an even wash or whatever. But their schedule was brutal, and this was his 4th year. In his first 3 years, he won more games than any South Carolina coach in school history in their first 3 years, including Lou Holtz, Steve Spurrier, whoever you want to name. So I think he had built up one freebie year. He cashed that in this year. So like you said, next year, they don't get the 8 wins next year. You're going to hear a lot of people wanting him, I think.
Yeah, I know the rumor is, he's going to try to reach out to Bobo, even though I guess technically Bobo hadn't been fired yet. But from the contract I read, that if he is kept till after January 1st, 2020, I think his buyout goes down like $3 million or something. So I can kind of see that for Colorado State holding on him for a while.
What Kirby calls him.
That's where hoping. Sean's real big on that. He's been an actual quarterback before. I think he'll be able to hopefully give Fromm some guidance, spread it out a little bit. We might get some third and Bobos up the middle, but you know how it is. Some screens, some bubbles. He loves that.
We might score 45 points a game.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then a couple other ones that happened. So you had Matt Luke fired at Ole Miss, Barry Odom, Missouri, Chad Morris, Arkansas, which that was kind of in the past for a little while. And then South Florida, Charlie Strong getting fired. Seems like Charlie Strong hasn't really done anything since Louisville. What's your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, Arkansas, I don't think they had a choice. It obviously wasn't working with Chad Morris. I get it that he walked into a bad situation, but he appeared to be making it worse. And when you've been somewhere 2 years and you played 7 different starting quarterbacks, something tells me you don't really know what you're doing. Yet there is no plan. Like, Kirby Smart's famous line about Fromm and Fields. The plan is there is no plan. That was Chad Morris's entire philosophy at Arkansas. There was no plan. So I think they had to get rid of him. It just couldn't be any worse there. I was a little bit surprised about the Ole Miss deal. I thought if a Mississippi school was going to make a change, it would have been Mississippi State, not Ole Miss. And Missouri was a little strange too. They had a weird year this year because of that bowl ban hanging over the top of them. And then, they had a quarterback that was there for just the 1 year and Kelly Bryant. They had some success with Drew Lock, at least offensively, even if it didn't show up in the records or whatever, win-loss or whatever. I was a little surprised about that. That's probably the one I was most surprised about. Was Ole Miss. As far as Charlie Strong at South Florida, I don't know. Kevin Sumlin's heading down that same road. He's not going to have a job much longer either. Out at Arizona, he's just doing absolutely nothing out there after falling on his face at Texas A&M. So I don't know. I think Florida State is obviously the most interesting one because that's, the biggest or the best job, I guess, of the ones that are available right now. Bob Stoops, wow, but now it's, I guess, I don't know. It's looking now like maybe it's not Bob Stoops. I don't know.
Guy I heard today for that job, Florida State. I know it was Stoops, but I heard Norvell from Memphis, and I heard that off. I don't know if you ever. He's on. They're on YouTube, but it's called The Late Kick with Josh Pate.
Yeah.
I've been listening to him. He's got some really good insight, and he always. I think they're out of Columbus, Georgia, is where they film it. But he was talking about Norvell. You could hear something about going to Florida State after this weekend. So
Norvell for sure. I think he'll make a really good coach in the Power Five. He knows what he's doing. And I tell you who else I would look at, and this is honestly maybe the Mississippi or the Arkansas school. Somebody needs to look at that Cincinnati head coach. What's his name? Is it Luke Fickell?
Might be. Yeah.
Cincinnati was dumpster fire when he got there, and this is his third year. I think he went 11-2 or 11-3 last year, and he's going to be about the same this year. He'll be ranked again this year. Somebody needs to look that direction too. He comes from Ohio State staff up under Urban Meyer, so pretty good pedigree there, at least in terms of coaching, not in terms of being a human being. Urban Meyer, trash human being. I don't know that. Clay Helton somehow still has a job too. Weird.
Yeah, speaking of that, you think he's going to stay there? I know the whole rumor was Urban's just waiting around, or it seems like it's kind of Luke Fickell. That's his name.
It doesn't make any sense to me why Southern Cal hasn't already fired him if that's the plan. Like, it makes no sense to keep holding on to him. I mean, you got early signing day 2 weeks away now. It's time to poop or get off the pot. If you're going to make a coaching change, you need to do it now. It's hard to sign a player to a school that has no head coach. So they need to either come out and say, Clay Helton is 100% our coach next year, period, end of story, or they need to fire him like 5 minutes ago. Because the longer they wait to fire him, the more damage it's going to do to their recruiting class.
And how about the rumor about Lane Kiffin to Arkansas?
Arkansas should do it immediately. I'm not convinced Lane Kiffin will be a success. It's obviously a risk, and you got a lot of baggage when you take on somebody like Lane Kiffin because of his personality and his Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But Arkansas is the type of school that needs to take that. Like, they need a high risk, high reward coach. Like, trying to go some conservative route at Arkansas is just not going to work out. You need somebody like Lane Kiffin. If it works, is a home run. And I don't really see another way that Arkansas becomes relevant in the SEC West outside of a home run hire at head coach. I mean, you want to hire somebody and they improve you to 8 wins, fine. You hire Lane Kiffin and things work out, you could be winning 10 games. Now, it might not work out and you're stuck at 4 or 5 and he becomes an embarrassment to your university. So there is a lot of risk involved with Lane Kiffin. But to me, Arkansas is the type of school that needs to take a risk like that. Like Florida State doesn't, like, to compare the two. Like Florida State, they don't need to take a risk like that. They can go out and hire a big name head coach, whether it's Bob Stoops or someone else. They'll pretty much get their pick of the litter in terms of available head coaches. Arkansas won't. Arkansas would be down the list on any available head coaches, wish list of destinations. So that would be the type of team I think that needs to go out and make sort of a risky hire in a Lane Kiffin. So to me, that would make sense for Arkansas.
How about Ole Miss? Who do you think? Do they still kind of have that sanctions on them at all, or is that kind of been lifted?
I think they're out from underneath the sanctions, but they were on scholarly restrictions for a couple of years, so it may be another year or two till they're at their full amount of scholarships again.
I will say that I watched that Egg Ball Thursday. Came back from eating and everything with the family, but man, when the kid did the pen, the dog pen after the touchdown, it's hilarious. I was laughing, and then I was like, "Oh man, that's a bad way to lose."
Right? Yeah, that was terrible, man. That was a wild game, though. Good game, crazy game.
It was.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I got back from Thanksgiving or whatever and caught like most of the second half of it. A wild game.
Yeah, I'd say the craziest game was the Iron Bowl. I was on and off because I was actually driving up to eat number 2 dinner with the other family, but that was crazy. I was watching on my YouTube TV, but 2 pick sixes by Matt Jones, I think, did it. That was crazy. I mean, that's
Alabama missing another big field goal. I mean, this is just, Alabama has missed more field goals since 2007 than any other Division I team in America, or FBS team, whatever they call it now. And it's just crazy. And for a while, Nick Saban was one of those head coaches who didn't believe in giving kicker scholarships and stuff like that. So you say, well, you kind of getting what you pay for. But that kicker they have now was the number 1 kicker recruit in America last year. He got full scholarship right off the rip. And I don't know if you remember all the way back in week 1 against Duke, he missed his first field goal attempt of the year, like a little 20 or 30 yarder. And I said, what is going on here with these Alabama field goal kickers? And then he seemed to kind of straighten it out mostly during the year. But then when they needed him the most, he missed it again. And it's just hard to understand what's going on with Alabama's field goal kicking. So you remember the national title game was caught, of course they won anyway, but their field goal kicker almost cost them the national title game against us in 2017, missing that little chip shot.
Exactly.
It's just been a pattern with them, and I don't know if it's this type of thing where maybe Nick Saban, I don't know what they do in practice. I don't know if it's like a pressure thing they're putting on these kids. It's just weird that I don't know how many kickers have they had since 2007. That's 12 years. You got to imagine they've had at least 6 or 7 different kickers in that time frame, and every single one of them just keeps missing kicks. It's just the weirdest thing. It's like the opposite of Beamer ball.
Yeah. We've been lucky with Hot Rod. We're going to miss him.
Oh, man. Best player we've had since Herschel Walker. I keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying it, too. I don't know if we've ever had another player that's been our MVP for 4 years in a row.
Exactly.
Even back in 2016 when we were terrible, he won the Kentucky game all by himself. I think he was 4 for 4 in that game, including the game winner as time expired. We won by 2 or whatever it was on the road at Kentucky. Hard to believe that in 2016, he wasn't even the starting field goal kicker. That what was his name? Jonathan Ham.
Oh yeah.
Jesus, he was terrible. Couldn't hit anything. And finally, like week 2 or 3, they put Hot Rod out there, and the rest is history.
I will say this: my mom, a diehard Georgia fan, probably knows more than most women. But I will say I always kid her about him because she loves him now. Is right when he came out for the first time. I remember her calling me, and she goes, "Who is that with the glasses?" And she's like, "He's so nerdy." And then now she loves him. But you got to admit, when he trots out there, he just doesn't look like a kicker. But damn, he's good though.
Well, and I think that has benefited him. I mean, obviously he's a great kicker, but because of like his quirkiness, he's developed almost like this cult following that has nothing to do with his field goal kicking ability. Now, obviously, if he was a terrible field goal kicker, none of that would matter. But it's just, and he's played it up too. Like I think it was all of 2016 and all of 2017. Every post game interview he did, he would wear his helmet. What are you doing, man? Like he'd come into the thing, he's still got his helmet on. I'm like, man, what are you doing?
Exactly.
But he gets the biggest ovation at every home game. I mean, it's crazy. It's hard to remember a player who has been that popular. Everybody always loves superstars, Chubb and Gurley and Shell and, whoever else you want to name up and down the roster over the last 10 or 15 years. But nobody comes close to just pure popularity of Hot Rod and being so recognizable. I don't live in or around Athens. I guarantee he can't go anywhere, can he? He can't go nowhere. He's mobbed everywhere he goes because, in theory, I know what a lot of the guys look like because I watch a ton of dumb, press conferences, and so if I saw Cade Mays, I would recognize him. But in theory, most people could be right, behind Solomon Kinley in line at the grocery store, and they wouldn't know it was him, But if you're behind Hot Rod, you're going to know he's got that unique. You're just going to know that's Hot Rod. I guarantee you, he can't go anywhere. Just gets mobbed, like Tom Cruise trying to go to Walmart.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing, unbelievable. I'm not an autograph guy. I never have been. I've got that Herschel Walker autograph jersey, so I've had it for years. But I would get like some sort of. I'm not a memorabilia guy just in general, but man, I would get some kind of Hot Rod something. Like, he's just the guy. How can you not like him? He seems like a good guy. He's good at his job. He's won us a lot of games this year, last year, the year before. I mean, just every single year the dude is money.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know you went to the Georgia Tech game. I've never really been to that stadium. So what was your thoughts of it, and why do they call it the Flats? Where they're playing at Georgia Tech on the Flats? Where do they get that from?
I don't have any idea. The football field I've seen is pretty flat. I mean, they're curved a little bit towards the sidelines for drainage reasons, but now they need to start over. They just need to tear that thing down and start over, and that's not even trash talk. I don't know how old that stadium is or whatever, but it's one of the most uncomfortable stadiums to sit in I've ever been to. The whole concession stand thing, it's a mess. The concourse area is teeny. Now, at halftime the lines get long, so if you're trying to walk through a concourse, it can be a little tricky sometimes, but it's impossible there. The amount of space from like the concession stand to the back wall is maybe 10 feet. It's just a mess there. They really need some major renovations there. And I'm not even kidding you. Pre-game warm-ups, their sound system consists of an actual guy sitting in the first row. He was one section over from me. It's an actual guy sitting in the first row with a full DJ setup, headphones, everything, and then 2 portable speakers that he just sets down on the field over the wall there from row 1, and that's the pregame music.
Wow.
It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, they're talking about Jeff Collins trying to change the culture or whatever. He just seems like he's maybe like a big cheerleader, and he's doing push-ups on the sidelines. I don't know about
the exact same thing. That's all. He's a cheerleader dressed up like a head coach. That's all he is. And he's and maybe that's his thing. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that because of that he won't be successful or he will be or whatever. But when you watch him, he's very like rah. He's strange, to say the least.
Yeah, one last thing I want to ask you. Not saying I'm a volunteer fan, but I got a lot of friends. But you can't help but not pull for Tennessee. They turned it around, being 1-4. They could have just leaned over and died, but turning around and ended up 7-5, and I think they may be going to the Outback Bowl. Some of the predictions. What's your thoughts on? Do you think Pruitt's going to be their guy for a while? Looks like they're heading in the right direction.
I mean, it appears that way. I mean, but this is the same pattern we've seen with the last 2 or 3 coaches too. 5 wins, 7 wins. Maybe next year they get to 8 or 9. But then that's always been the problem. It goes from there back to 4 or something. And they got to avoid that this go around. I'm happy for Tennessee fans too. Outside of Georgia fans, Tennessee fans make up probably my largest audience on YouTube. And those guys have been through a lot, especially on a channel like mine. About to look forward to. So I'm happy for a lot of the fans. With that being said, I'm already starting to see just completely unrealistic things being said by a lot of Tennessee fans about the bowl game this year and their season next year. I mean, the reality is, yes, Tennessee won 5 games in a row, but they beat 5 really bad teams. Now, that's still an improvement because before they've been losing to some really bad teams. But the best team they beat what was the best team they beat during that stretch? Mississippi State. So, you look at their schedule next year, week 2 at Oklahoma, come to Athens. They host Florida and Alabama. I don't know anybody that would put $1 on Tennessee to win any of those 4 games right now. So They're 7-5 now. It appears to me their ceiling next year is 8-4. Now, if they go 8-4, they'll still be able to say that was an improvement. They win a bowl game, they'll get to 9 wins. They'll say, "What, we're a year ahead of what Butch did," or whatever. I don't know, but they're miles away.
Right.
I mean, talent-wise, they can't compete right now. They just can't. Now, the coaching is what it is. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's great. Maybe it's somewhere in between. They don't have the talent to win the East or the SEC or anything like that. They would need a couple of really good recruiting classes. And the problem with recruiting, and you guys know this, problem with recruiting in the SEC, you can have a great class nationally, 10, 11, 12. That's going to put you 6th in the SEC. It's just group right now in the SEC. Texas A&M, LSU, Alabama, all in the top 5. Auburn close to the top 5. They're 5 to 10. Florida is going to be hovering in the 5 to 10 to 12 range. And then Tennessee's probably after that. And it's just hard to catch up when you're 6th in your league in recruiting. You know, if you're 12th, you might be 1st in the Pac-12 or the ACC. You might be 2nd or 3rd in the Big 10, the Big 12, but it's just so brutal, the recruiting race in the SEC right now. Almost impossible to dig yourself out from under a hole. I mean, everybody talks about Kirby's recruiting, but we weren't terrible pre-Kirby recruiting. I mean, we basically went from top 10 classes under Mark Richt to top 5 under Kirby. Tennessee's got a lot of work to do, recruiting-wise.
Yeah, I believe we're number 5 currently, and I know we got some 5-stars we're looking at, so hopefully we'll finish strong. I'm hoping maybe top 3. I know it's hard to get number 1 every year, but.
Yeah, well, it won't be Zach Evans. You scratch that off your list. Some people still think he's coming to UJ. That's not happening. We just lost a 4-star wide receiver, which I scratch my head every time I read that a receiver is committed to UGA. I'm like, why? What are you doing?
All right.
But, I mean, I'm glad they do, but I'm saying dual threat quarterbacks, too. I'd be shocked if we ever get another one of those.
Yeah, it looks like Carson Beck, you know, he's 6'4", 6'5", kind of more pro-style statue quarterback. And then I know they had that C.J. Stroud visit from California, but he's probably not coming, but I think he came to look around.
I wonder if Kirby doesn't look to the transfer protocol for transfer portal for a quarterback this year if we end up losing for some reason.
All right.
I don't know how much faith he would know more about Dwan Mathis than I would. I mean, apparently Dwan Mathis has been practicing all year. He just not cleared for contact, but I hear he might not ever play a snap of football again. So I don't know. And I liked the idea of him. He looked good in the spring game too. I mean, I know it's a spring game, but come on, that's all we had to go on. So
right.
Looking good in the spring game is better than looking bad. I'm not saying the spring game means he would be great, but that's all you have to go on. I liked what I saw from him there, and it was just a big disappointment that he wasn't able to get some reps this season. You know, I mean, Stetson Bennett, he's done what he can, but let's be honest, Stetson Bennett would never start a game in the SEC anywhere, period. And if he does, we're in big trouble.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, yeah, appreciate you. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you're busy. Appreciate you coming back on the podcast again. And for those people that hadn't heard about your YouTube channel, any what's the best way to find you on there?
Yeah, if you just go to YouTube, type in Uncle Lou, you'll find that it'll come up, and check it out. Watch more than one video too. I do a lot of trash talk videos, and some people don't like those. It turns them off. Watch more than one. So if you don't like trash talk videos, try another one. Usually people stick around for 2 or 3 videos. They're hooked. Don't just get mad at the first one you see. Not that I care about your feelings, because I don't. But give it more than one video. Don't just watch one and then say, no, this ain't for me. I do a little bit of everything on there.
I noticed you've been doing some stuff. Is it Mark Bradley? I know you were on him a couple of times, so you're growing. Your brand's growing.
Yo, Mark Rogers, yeah. I like Mark Rogers. Man, he's probably, there's a ton of people that do the college football YouTube thing. He's probably the most knowledgeable guy I know on there. He's worked for ESPN for years. So he's a sports guy for a living, and he does YouTube on the side. I think he's sort of has a plan maybe to make it full time at some point down the road. But so he's a legit sports guy. He's not like me. He's not some idiot with a camera. He's
Right.
actually worked. He's been working for ESPN for years. So he still works for him now. So he knows his stuff. It's like he swallowed a computer chip. I like him a lot. I've been on his show several times. I've had him on my show. He's a really good guy. But yeah, channel's been going good. I can't complain. This is the busy time. It'll die down some in February.
How many subscribers are you up to? I know it's growing.
I think about 30,000.
Awesome. Yeah, man. We'll have to keep growing. All right. Well, Uncle Lou, thanks again. We're big fans of you. Watch all your stuff, and hope Georgia can pull off the upset on Saturday.
Fingers crossed. Go Dogs. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Uncle Lou.
Talk to y'all later.